Hey guys, Will here, and today we're going to talk about garrisons. So Blizzard just released the first part in a 4-part blog series where they talk about garrisons and their progress on them since BlizzCon. Basically, they get into the more nitty-gritty details of the system. We haven't really heard that much about them since BlizzCon, aside from a few things over Twitter or in an artcraft, something like that. We haven't really heard how this is really going to work. So one of the big elements of garrisons that they're talking about now is how they really heavily integrate them into the leveling experience. They really want you to feel like as soon as you enter Draenor and you stake your claim in Shadowmoon or Frostfire, that you're building a base to fight the Iron Horde, right? You're raising an army to fight these guys. Now it seems to me like we kick the Iron Horde's ass in 6.0, so I find it a little bit hard to believe they're going to be the main enemy of the whole expansion, but anyway. It kind of seems like the player has gone from being a nameless champion or a nameless hero into this kind of commander guy, right? You're kind of filling the role of someone like Garrosh or Varian back at Wrath, where you were building up these bases and taking the fight to the Lich King. Now you're doing the same thing but against the Iron Horde. In order to integrate garrisons into the questing experience, they're going to make it so while you're questing, you'll unlock different types of buildings, right? And you'll be able to choose which ones you want. And they want these choices to be relatively meaningful, so it'll influence which quests you have available in the zone, as well as zone-specific benefits that you get while in that zone. An example of this is you're allowed to construct a garrison outpost in Gorgrond, and you can pick one of two buildings, a lumber mill or a sparring arena. Now you receive a permanent benefit depending on which one you pick. So for example, if you pick the sparring arena, you'll be able to summon a random gladiator. Here they show up being an ogre bodyguard. Whereas if you pick the lumber mill, you'd be able to call in a shredder that you could pilot around for a little bit. They also mention calling down airstrikes on the Iron Horde being another zone-specific benefit. Basically, it'll vary per zone and per building. Blizzard also talked more about the follower system. They mentioned collecting them will be similar to collecting mounts or pets. I don't really know how that's going to work. They're more like people rather than mounts or pets, but okay. They also said we cannot name them. But basically, each follower will have a varying skill set, right? So they'll be good at some things, or bad at other things, right? You'll want to assign these followers to areas where they're going to be good at it. You wouldn't assign a blacksmith to a raid mission, because he's just going to die. You want a warrior for that, right? You want someone good in combat. And again, you wouldn't assign a combat-focused guy to, like, your jewel crafting building. So basically, there's going to be some gameplay in which followers you assign to which building and things like that. They say that followers will level up just like you, all the way up to level 100, and then after that, they'll progress in a similar manner as we do with item level, and they'll gain new abilities and new traits, and they'll even progress while you're offline. So if you send a follower on a mission, and then you log off, they will still do that mission even while you're offline. Now, initially, some people were like, oh, it's like botting, but it's not. I mean, I get what you're saying, like, oh, it's like botting because they're gathering ore for you or whatever, but it's a very different thing. One, it's in the game and they expect everyone to use it, so, okay, they're giving everyone a bot, I guess, if you want to look at it like that. The real reason they're adding this is because they don't want you to feel like you have to be in your garrison all the time if you want your followers to do anything. But if you do want to be in your garrison, a lot of the time, they're making some new NPC AI to make it feel more alive and more dynamic, which I actually hope we'll see used in other places as well. An example of this new dynamic AI is, they said if you wanted to make a conga line with your followers, thanks to a new player emote, that's awesome, we get a conga line, you'll be able to kind of line up your followers and just kind of dance around the garrison if you want. Now that sounds pretty cool. Ridiculous, but pretty cool. Again, kind of going along with the idea that you're now a commander or an important figure in the lore, your garrison will apparently host leaders and other notable heroes from your faction to talk war strategy. So I guess like Vol'jin is going to come to your garrison for dinner. Like, I really don't understand why they're doing that, but it's cool. Like, if Thrall wants to come to my garrison and hang out for a bit, I'm cool with that. So they say while questing is the primary way to establish the base, it's not going to be the only way. You can find followers to teach you blueprints for various buildings. You can also find these as drops in dungeons or out in the world, or from faction rep, or you could actually purchase some of them from Avenger when you reach level 100. Basically, they're just going to have these kind of catch-up mechanism things for people who really don't like to do quest to level, right? There's a lot of people out there who like to PvP to level, or like to do dungeons only, not a big fan of questing, and I think Blizzard gets that, you know, it's a valid way to play, even if it isn't necessarily the intended way. I mean, questing is pretty much the main way, but if you want to do it a different way, that's fine, and so they're not going to totally ruin your garrison experience if you don't quest. So there's a total of 21 buildings, and a maximum of 10 plots, even when your garrison is all the way leveled up. So that means there's going to be a lot of choices to make. But you can adjust your garrison and kind of change the buildings you want in there when you need to, but They really don't want it to be like, okay, my garrison is max level, I have everything, I never need to worry about it. They want there to be meaningful choices in the system. Now, a lot of these are profession buildings because garrisons are heavily integrated into professions. So they're going to talk more about this in another blog, but the gist of it is that the garrison will generate mats and will allow you to access more than just your 2 primary professions. So you can build a blacksmithing building and an engineering building while your 2 professions are alchemy and herbalism, right? And it will be similar to having the profession, but not quite as good, I believe. I think they kind of said it won't be necessarily as amazing as actually having the profession. More garrison integration? They're apparently in every zone. Now, it says while your main fortress will always be in Shadowmoon Valley or Frostfire Ridge, which is disappointing because previously they had stated we could move it. Then it was like, well, no, it's going to be in Frostfire or Shadowmoon, but we might allow you to move it later at max level or in a patch. Now they're like, no, it's in Frostfire or Shadowmoon, deal with it. They're going to have garrison outposts in Gorgron, Talador, Nogrin, and Spires of Arak. Not to non-jungle, interestingly enough. Now, these outposts, I believe, are what the blog is mainly talking about in terms of zone-specific benefits, right? So your outpost is where you get to pick your shredder or your, like your lumber mill or your sparring arena. And I find this a little bit interesting because Mumper said on Twitter that while the garrison is a little bit more customizable in that you can switch out buildings later on if you don't like that particular one, they said the outpost buildings are actually a one-time only decision, which I think is interesting and potentially a bit limiting. I actually hope they rethink that idea because I don't really like the idea of one-time only choices that you make while leveling and then you're kind of stuck with for 2 years while the expansion goes on. But anyway, that's the end of this blog and the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.